Welcome back to Story Hustler, Murder, Mayhem, PTSD. I'm Dylan.
And I'm Mike.
Like and subscribe. We always forget to say that.
Okay, said and done. And boy, do we have so much to talk about.
Breaking news.
The last couple of weeks have been insane, but let's start with the breaking news. Last time we had a chat, we were talking about a missing 17-year-old girl who had been abducted by members of the FLDS faith
Her sisters.
and other co-conspirators. The bottom line is we got a call late one night that there was a missing 17-year-old girl up on the Utah-Arizona border. It's a story we've heard before. Cameraman Adrian Campa and I got in a car the next day, went up there, and in fact there is this very, really wonderful couple, loving parents by the name of Dan and Maxine Jessup. And their life story reads like a roadmap of the insane cruelty that Warren Jeffs has now inflicted on an entire generation. And given the signs and things we're hearing from Warren, it sounds
New revelations.
It sounds like we're just circling back right to where we were.
History is in fact repeating itself.
That's what it really seems to, and that's what I want to talk about. I feel like the girl that we talked about has been reunited with her parents after just a nightmarish ordeal that has played out over the last
like 3 days.
Well,
it's been happening for like a while. She's been missing for a while, but
about 6 weeks, I may guess.
But
maybe.
they just got the court order that they can go pick her up. And
what happens?
Well, when they go to pick her up, it's hours away from her parents' house, so they have to drive.
They've got squirreled her away at basically an FLDS safe house.
Yeah, somewhere.
A long way away from the parents' home in the creek.
Yes. So they drive, they get there, and the girls have taken off. The older sisters have taken the young girl that they're looking for and fled, basically. And now the parents have now they're in contempt of court because she's been legally...
And the parents are at this point have now communicated with law enforcement who've known about this case for about a month and done nothing. So, as I've said before, I have a lot of respect for cops, but in this case, law enforcement hasn't always been either the sharpest tool in the shed or in worst cases, have been enforcers for Warren. With that said, a lot of cops have stepped up, but the bottom line is, and it's a complicated story, and we produced a couple of stories that I think really sort of lay it out, and for me, were some of the most informative stories I think I've ever done on the FLDS. Those stories we produced with AZ Family.
We'll link
Channel
those
3,
below. They're
Channel
also in our last video's bio section.
If you're interested in this, please go look at the stories we did just recently for AZ Family, and I'm really grateful for their support and help throughout this. But it lays out the chronology of what I think are just really significant events that have transpired just in the last couple of months. Starting with, it was interesting, the Netflix doc Keep Sweet and Pray and Obey dropped, and it lit a fire under this story. Now everybody's talking about it. But just at about the same time the doc dropped, Warren puts out a revelation from God from his prison cell in Texas. And again, why that he is so able to communicate with the outside world is something I don't really understand.
A convicted pedophile, mind you, and he still has so much sway over this.
What the hell's up with prison officials down in Texas? I don't know. Maybe this is his rights. Maybe it's all good. But it seems pretty squirrely to me. Warren puts out this revelation from God on June 3rd. And it's full of ornate, bullshit, flowery language that Warren always does with his communication.
Makes it confusing so people don't actually understand the message.
I think it makes it godly in his twisted little mind.
But it's also manipulation. It's like if they can't completely understand what you're saying, but they get the ideas.
He's such a read
between the lines, there's definitely underlying messages in what he's saying.
And let's go to the main messages, the headlines from that revelation.
They are now resuming the celestial plural marriages.
And understand the context of this. Most people tell me at about 2006, when Warren got put in prison, he's not going to have human contact from then on out. So he says everybody in his community has to stop that too and repent and pray to get him out.
If you can't, no one can.
Well, and this is sort of what an egomaniacal SOB like him thinks. But so he puts out, so they haven't been doing official celestial plural marriages for damn near 16 years. And but Warren just recently puts out this flowery revelation from God that they're going to start celestial plural marriages again. And I think of note, the other headline from this thing is that he identifies a son of his named Helaman.
Possibly the next prophet?
Well, who knows?
I thought that was anointed by God.
Well, this is two issues here. From little I've learned, I've asked a couple around, not many people I know much about this guy, possibly in his late 20s, early 30s. And my takeaway from that is Daddy clearly wants to put Helaman in the spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
So what I say is, welcome to the spotlight, Sonny. I hope that law enforcement is elsewhere is looking at whatever this guy's doing.
Open your eyes.
He's gathering up the flock. The Revelation says that, he and Helaman and God are going to rally together the flock. The FLDS community just jubilant. Oh, we're going to get our families back together and we're going to start marriages again.
That only means that they're going to suck people back in.
Kumbaya. Suck people back in, which brings us back to our story that got me out of retirement and us going up to Colorado City and producing stories for the TV station. Something I was happy to have had in the rear view mirror for my life.
Well, I think that the Netflix doc, obviously it brought light to this whole story, but most people think it's in the past, Like, they think it's over. And we all kind of did. But I guess Warren just wants to spark it up again.
Yeah, spark it up again.
And that's scary.
3 episodes ago, we're talking about the Netflix doc as this sort of admirable,
depiction of history.
Immersion course in what's gone on, and it's a terrific documentary. But you know what? Suddenly the story is again happening in the moment, in real time.
Yep.
And I was hoping it was history, but it ain't history anymore. Warren and his flock of cultists are now back into the marrying game. When they get into the marrying game, they say that it's just celestial plural marriages, but it inevitably becomes celestial underage plural marriages. And my exhibit A on that is Warren Jeffs himself. He sits in a Texas prison cell convicted of raping a 12-year-old girl. He did so on a ceremonial bed in a big fancy temple on that gulag property
Texas.
had down in Texas.
With women around, with other wives around who let this happen.
Witnessed by a number of people and
recorded.
And then the narcissistic son of a bitch records it. That audio tape is why he's in prison, because as I've said many times,
he still has supporters.
Yeah, well, why do people adhere to cults? This is a political question for America today. But the bottom line is, and I say only partially in jest, they played that audio tape of Warren Jeffs raping a 12-year-old girl. It is the kind of thing that makes
Didn't you say the jurors wanted to jump over and beat him?
Well, I just think that it's really a good thing for Warren's scrawny ass that there was a bunch of big, tough Texas Rangers in that courtroom, because after they played that audio tape, there were a lot of people, I think, in that courtroom, including a lot of the jurors, who would have killed Warren Jeffs with their bare hands.
He's a vile human.
Well, and he's still calling the shots, and he's now, and you brought up the interesting thing, which is something that Warren can explain to his followers. But when I went to Sunday school back in a Mormon church many, many years ago, little boy, my recollection is that the prophecy is ordained of God.
Right?
And people,
not by your daddy picking you. Sorry, but that happened with Warren though. Like his dad just picked him.
No, Warren picked himself.
But I'm just saying, he had help from his dad, obviously, and his mom, his birth mom.
And so,
fucking married some of his mom.
So FLDS people who will never watch this thing, my question to you is: in fact, this prophecy ordained of God, or is it now a bloodline thing in the Jeffs family, where Warren snakes his way into his father's shoulder as the old man starts drooling on himself and seizes power. And now Warren is maybe anointing one of his sons, Helaman, as the next prophet.
It's nepotism at its finest
Well,
in a corrupt, vile, criminal corporation.
Yeah, and let's expand this out. So, if Warren's behind bars, his nefarious stuff doesn't happen unless he's got faithful flunkies and thugs out in his
doing his dirty work.
The young girl that we've been talking about is home with her family. Now the real work starts, because now that this mother and father is going to have to overcome the toxic poison that
she's been fed for the last few years.
And there is no guarantee that with the limited time frame they have, because she's 17, she'll turn 18
make her own
shortly
choice.
next year, and no, she'll not make her own choice. She'll make the choice that this
I'm just
poisonous
saying,
cold.
but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know exactly, and I'm just because I'm fired up. Now I'm rambling. There's so many points that I just feel that we have to make. This young girl, this 17-year-old, didn't vanish in midair without people helping. There were two sort of, it seems, toxic older sisters who. This family has been torn apart, and their kids were basically taken, all 7 of them were taken away from this couple some years ago and given to some FLDS handler. That means just some indoctrination school. It's a North Korean.
Their version of the foster care system.
Foster care, FLDS foster care. That's where you're going to see these problems popping up, because they don't have compounds anymore, and the FLDS have basically cleared out of Colorado City and Hilldale. And one quick point, that community, people should go up and check it out now, because if you haven't been up there for a while, entirely new vibe. Mm-hmm. They got a big shopping plaza up there that you could drop in North Scottsdale or Beverly Hills, and it'd be right at home. Fancy schmancy.
All right, that's beside the point.
But I just wanted the town has utterly changed. Yeah. But the evil that Warren Jeffs has wrought on the people who are still
remains
there
same.
And now scattered all over is. So, and the family's story, I really think, sort of is a roadmap of just the generational destruction that this guy has wrought on. Again, the irony of it is the people who suffer here are his most devoted followers. Hard to figure out, but that's the way it works. And what else do we need to talk about? We're still so many issues with this thing. It says to me that this is back. It should be back on the concern level of law enforcement throughout the country.
This is breaking news.
Well, the story of this girl is certainly breaking news, and the good news is, again, that she was recovered, I'm told, by Colorado City town marshals. She had been sort of hidden away near a town called Ferrin for a while, up in Emery County, Utah, which is apparently a spot where a lot of the FLDS have migrated to. And but they finally caught her at some other FLDS relatives' homes yesterday. They reunited her with her parents. Parents are, I think the little communication I've had with them is that they are greatly relieved and grateful for this opportunity to try to save this daughter, but realize it is overwhelming, because the poisonous legacy of this brainwashing, it runs deep. And so.
Yeah. It's a sad story, and it's a hard story, and it's a story that people need to be aware of.
Yeah. The revelation, Netflix doc, the missing girl, back in the marriage business, a son being identified.
I just want the people who are concerned about the pedophile rings in politics to be concerned about this too.
Well, and then you please, because it seems like
let's actually worry about real pedophiles
and the politicians here in Arizona that have covered their asses for many years.
Biggs.
Congressman Andy Biggs, a guy out in East Valley named Eddie Farnsworth. Who else? Tough guy Brnovich had an opportunity
They've let this go on.
go after one of the most notorious.
So because of them, more victims have.
Yeah, and that's what it is. You know, these guys can get paid off by whatever. These guys can make their political decisions for whatever reasons they want, but they're real victims behind their inability to have a set of fucking nuts. Balls to do anything.
That's why they're going after other people.
Yeah, okay, but we're getting into the weeds.
On the kettle black.
Ain't that the truth? So I'm fired up. I want to go back. I want to go back to being retired. But you know what? When war and the one I've probably said this. I want to underline it. You know, the FLDS, when I was up there recently doing the stories, you know, the ones I talked to and the people who are sort of sympathizers of the FLDS who are kicking up their heels, families are going to be unified because they're going to let people back in the FLDS Church. Let me say
let them back.
My experience is going back into the FLDS Church is not a good idea.
No.
Not a good social policy. And they can kick up their heels and trot out sort of sweet-faced FLDS folks to extol the virtues of this, but you know, they're just being shills for a serial pedophile. And at this point, it's just the criminality of this group, from ripping off the government to the abuse and abandonment of the boys, to the corralling of young women and treating them like livestock. It's a bad group, misogynistic to its core, and you know what? I'm tired of playing games, and I don't want to be back
when
here.
When are we gonna have enough? Like,
and
seriously,
I'm pissed off about this.
We just all need to wake up. Like.
Yeah. Well, I don't. You know. Yeah. I wish that was the case, but
I wish reality was really reality.
All I got to say is Warren, keep sweet, baby. And you know what? Some of us old timers are still watching. And
I would say bring it, but I don't want him to bring it. I want him to be fucking scared and back down.
That is, well, you know what? Throughout my career chasing this, I always tried to behave myself when I was around the women and children because I figured they'd been traumatized enough. But whenever you can get one of those rats to surface and get him in your car, you know,
they're cowards.
Well, they run like hell, or you know, they'll get chesty for a minute, but it's cowards. And so
I should probably stop cussing.
Yeah, well, I should too. We're gonna have to bleep. Can we say
no
this
one?
stuff?
No, I'll just say no. It's not made for kids because none of this is made for kids.
No longer. No. This is adult fare, and again, I hope that communities where you start seeing, you know, these homes of the FLDS, you know, most of them are just scared, intimidated, damaged people, and you need to approach with caution. But some of them are also thugs and dominatrix and people who corral children. And this has been going on now with Warren has been tearing asunder families for now a couple of decades. And you got a whole generation now too, where kids have been so alienated and separated from their families, their moms and dads, they don't recognize them. Plus they've been told that they're evil because they've been kicked out. This is poisonous at every level. So we're sounding the alarm, and that's what I hope this episode accomplishes. And I want to go move on and talk about some other crazy crimes when Nick Cage tried to pick a fight with me one time or something like that. I want to talk about something other than this.
It's too lighthearted right now, Meg. There's serious work to be done.
I guess I had been put in my place by my executive producer. With that,
we'll sign off.
Are we good? What's your bottom line?
My bottom line? I ranted the last episode, so I'm ranted out. But I agree with you. This is infuriating, and I just, I said it before. This is just, I see this happening in this small community of this country, and on such a larger scale, the steps are being put into place for this to happen, across the country.
Religious fanatics need to keep their goddamn hands off everybody else's lives, because
they're all about their own personal freedoms. They're all about it, not taking them away, but they want to take everybody else's away because it's all a power trip.
Yeah.
Like, if you believe in your mythical book, then you believe in your mythical book. I don't. So, honestly,
I knew I could get you going a little bit.
Sorry.
Again, let's just
get out of my life.
All right. Yeah.
and everybody else's who
But
doesn't believe in your
like and
mythical
subscribe.
bullshit.
But like and subscribe.
But like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Questions, comments, concerns.
Yeah, I mean,
only if they're nice.
Listen, I know that this is going to. I may find some people may find it interesting. It'll probably piss some people off. We'd love to hear from all of you. And again, Warren.
You can read those comments.
Please, we'd love to. Yeah, I'll read the comment. Warren, yeah, anything you got to say, Helaman, love to hear from you. You want to sit down here and talk to us?
Give us a call.
Always a seat available. Keep
sweet.
Keep sweet. Nuts. Good night, everybody.
Good night.